spend a lot of time. The reason why we're doing, it works out almost 20, 25 minutes a chapter that we're doing here. The reason we're doing it this way is because you've done the reading, you've done the assignments, now it's just trying to put it together. It's trying to give you guys that opportunity to go, hey, this doesn't make sense. Or I took this before and I don't understand why this is in the book now or it's relevant, because we have people that have had training. I hear somebody's talking. Fire service history is something that I get pretty excited about. I really like this side of it. I'm a little bit of a nerd that happens that stuff. Looking back on where fire departments started, some of the first fire departments in North America, that history is phenomenal. Anybody know what the oldest professional fire department in North America is? Yeah, if you look it up, it's a fun little reading, actually. It's been full-time for a lot of years, so I won't give it away just yet. Something for you to look up. I'm going right into my book, into page 12. We're going to significant historical events. The fire service has learned a lot of lessons from past events. These serious fires, and I did read your post on this chapter talking about significant fires and what the ramifications were. People don't understand quite often that it takes a lot of effort, basically, to get change to happen. People are going to just keep doing things because they think they should, because we always have. It takes serious death, injuries, anything to make change happen. I just want to touch base with you, like the Iroquois fire, the theater fire in 1903, where all people died. That instituted things like panic hardware. Great Fire of Toronto, a lot of people died down there. The Triangle Fire, Coconut Grove Fire, where 492 people died. I want you to stop for a moment. Just think of it. This is Coconut Grove. This is Boston, Mass. And 492 people died in a bar. How many people have you been in a bar, even here locally? How many people have you been at? Like, I've seen maybe 100, 200. Some of the ones that have been in the city, like you can have 300, like multiple levels, everything that's there. Imagine a smaller, older 1900 building, like late 1800s building, and there's 500 people in there. That's the ones that didn't get out. So then it brought about rules about occupancy loads, brought about rules about how many people can be in there, those type of things. The Railings brothers, if you read about that fire, they were actually trying to do fireproofing for their tent. What they did was they put gasoline mixed with wax, and that's what they tried to fireproof their tent with. You know, today, mixing anything with gas, you automatically know it's probably not fireproofed. But this is what they were working with. The technology wasn't there. Things that are not in here is specifically about that tent fire was that exits were blocked. They were trying to maximize seating, trying to make as much money as possible. They tried to control how people got in the tent. There was limited access, limited egress, so things like that. It takes a lot of, unfortunate injury, illness, or death, to make change happen. The Our Lady of the Angle school fires brought about school drills. They also tried to avoid having schools up on different floors because there's been some of those fires in the urban United States, there in the eastern United States, where they had schools up on higher floors and they didn't have evac drills and there wasn't safety for the kids to get out. People were jumping. Imagine kids jumping to their death rather than burning alive. So you learn things from past mistakes. Going on to page 14, 15, you have more fires, general trends. General trends I want to talk to you about real quick here. I'm on page 15. Fire prevention and public safety and education. In case you guys haven't noticed already with your time with departments, we are in the prevention business. We are in the safety side of stuff. We are trying to make sure that we're going down a new path. Firefighter safety is something that has come a long ways. It's still got a lot of room to grow. It's touching a lot of full-time fire departments first, and then it's working its way down to the part-time, paid-on-call, volunteer, that type of stuff. We are more aware now than ever that firefighters just don't have to be strong. They have to be physically fit. They have to be mentally fit. They have to be mentally ready to go. Having a good safety program, good fitness programs, those type of things will do a lot of good things for your fire department. One thing I haven't mentioned a little bit about is the types of services that are out there. EMS hasn't always been a part of the fire service, so emergency medical system, that's where we provide a medical component. This does not always mean that every fire department out there provides a ambulance service and they provide medical. It could be something simple as first aid, could be first medical response, could be more elaborate, could be a combined service. So the emergency medical services that are there, The job itself has changed a lot because we can have EMS components, we can have hazardous materials, terrorism, disasters, professional amounts of fire department. One thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is the page 17 of the book, Accreditation Certification. You'll notice that the giant box that's there, the accreditation side of it, they're really pushing that nowadays, doing accredited and certified training. That's what you guys are doing now. That's what you're participating in. And I think some of us can agree that it'd be great to get the seal so I don't have to keep doing it again. We understand that a little bit. If you're actually able to do this training and get your seal, this is something they don't take away from you. You've met the professional firefighter standards. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this course. It's a new way to do it to you. We're hoping it's going to be easier for you guys, a little bit more self-study, a little bit more time. The fire service culture. This is something I could talk a lot about on page 17 for quite a while. There has been past cultures, like females can't be in the fire service. That's just a rule. You have to be strong. You have to be able to bench press a house to be a firefighter. You have to be 6 feet tall. You have to have perfect vision. Those cultures and ways were there for a reason. They don't exist necessarily today because of the changes in technology, the changes in attitude, the culture. The one thing that I do like in here is the cultural challenges that goes on to the next pages. It talks about how you have to make sure that the fire service attracts the right people. The people that we need in the fire service that are willing to change, willing to adapt, willing to evolve. The modern generation of people that are out there are easier with this. Some of the generations before, where you had a typewriter in school, you dealt with that. That's all you learned. It's a typewriter. You just did the typing, type. Even me, I had my one type of computer program, basically went through most of my high school. We didn't have that. We didn't change every week. You didn't have this new technology coming in every year, different companies competing. People today are more equipped for change than past generations, in my opinion. So making sure you actually establish that understanding that it is a job that's evolving. You're going to need to continue to train. This 1001 firefighting that we're doing is not the finish line. I like to tell people it's the starting line. You know, getting this is a good goal. It's going to help the community, going to help yourselves, going to help the department. So please stick with it. Diversity, talk a little about resistance to change. Resistance to change is an impactful part of the fire department because people are stubborn. They stick in their ways. They're stuck in their ways. The fire service has been famous for having these people, so much so that it made it into the textbook. It describes how we resist change. I heard the joke a long time ago that there would still be horses in the fire hall if some people had their way. The modern fire service, you wouldn't believe the resistance they had when they went from steam-powered engines or engines, they wanted the horses pulling them still. The horses were better. We were better trained. We were this. People just didn't want to change. Understanding that we need to overcome that is so important. They put it in the textbook. Has some humility there for the fire service as well. Difference of personal characteristics, kind of self-explanatory, personal responsibility, and cultural strengths. The fire department is supposed to reflect the community. I think RCMP can even help back that up too. You know, RCMP is supposed to reflect our country as another organization. So that means the RCMP would be in trouble if they were all white males. That means the entire community that they serve, the entire country is white males. It's not true. You need to have people that are out there that are female, different ethnic backgrounds, things there. The fire department should have that, have some cultural strengths. And there is strength in that. You're bringing in different languages or different backgrounds, different work ethics, different prides, different systems, everything that works in there. Being a good firefighter means you can work with integrity, moral character, have a strong work ethic, pride, courage, loyalty, respect, compassion. For all of you guys that have gone on the fire department that interviewed, that had to be on here, people that interviewed you saw one of those characteristics. They saw one of those qualities. They want you with the fire service. They're glad that you want to be a part of it because they think you can bring something like that to the team. So, fire department service missions and organizations. You're going to hear terms in here. Anytime you guys are doing your textbook, from my versions and what I understand with these textbooks, those yellow boxes on the side, take note of those, understand those, and actually be able to not just to read it and go, okay, authority having jurisdiction is blah, 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 blah. Understand what it means. We will use this term a little bit coming up, even in the whole course material. This is up to the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction. What we're trying to get at there is paint a picture for you that, you know, the book may say something about, you know, this is as simple as this is, but you may not apply it. Terminology may not be there where in your department, where it could be in another department. An example would be putting the actually, sorry, a striking axe and the Halligan together and calling it irons. Some areas call that an iron. That's a set of irons. Other areas call that the entry combo, like it's actually a combo tool, like it's to combine things. Terminology, it's going to be under whatever authority having jurisdiction, jargon, those things, it can change. The fire service mission, what I actually was hoping to do is bring our mission statement downstairs to show you what from downstairs to up. The fire department here, we do have a mission statement. The reason we have a mission statement is so people in the department know what we're about, what we do, and then we can tell the community about what it is, what we do. Mission statements are important because it actually works with the strategic plan. Strategic planning for fire departments out there, you actually can paint a picture of where you're going. We need money to do this because we protect the community. Simplest statement as that. So, examples of the fire service mission, protection, EMS, technical rescue, fire cause and determination, those things. That's all on that page 21. If you guys come across a term that you don't know, if we go through these 5 chapters here, it's going to be a little quick, so don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't understand that term. What does it mean? Don't be afraid to speak up. Fire department organization, the flow chart that you see on page 22, I have a version of it, but I didn't get a chance to find it here, bring it to you tonight. The version I was going to show you actually is a pedestal of birds. There is a big eagle up here, sitting on a template there. There is a couple hawks down beneath there. And then there's below that, there's some owls. And then below that, it goes into some crows, then a whole bunch of sparrows. Not meaning size and anything to do with it. It was actually a diagram that references excrement. The eagle excretes up there. All that trickles down until eventually you get down to this one. And that's where all the poop collects. It's a funny humorous diagram in that a lot of stuff just goes downhill. And a lot of that crap lands on the bottom ranks. Understanding the hierarchy of the fire department isn't about shit. What it is about understanding where the workloads go and who is responsible to whom. Firefighters report, in this situation, they go up the chain here. This is not something that is typically separated in Canada as the driver operators and firefighter EMTs. That's where you can actually find more US. But firefighters to a lieutenant is a common rank structure to a captain. So firefighters report to lieutenants, lieutenants report to captain, captain returns to the bat chief or assistant chief, up to deputy chief and fire chief. So this is a hierarchy that we can find here in the fire service. This is fairly common to see, with the exception of driver operators. You may see something just below this firefighter line that could be called probationary firefighters. Could be a lot of people that we have here. Doesn't mean you're beneath anything. Please don't think of it in that way. What we're thinking about is just, if I have a problem or I have a question, who do I go to? That's why we have organizational flow charts. You have to take more training as you go up, so you don't just start at the top. You work your way up, getting more training. It is very beneficial to understand what the bottom ranks do to move up. Trust me, I do know from experience. Page 23, different types of departments and staffing. You can hear career departments. Career departments means that's where they have firefighters that are working full-time. That's their job. Volunteer departments can also be split into paid-on-call departments. Not every department is necessarily volunteer. There is paid-on-call. There are departments still in Alberta that you guys just want to be aware of. That what we do, just speaking from Wayland's behalf, members get paid to go to calls. There are departments out there that don't get paid. Zero. Like nothing whatsoever. And they do that. That's a true volunteer department. I like to call the town here, volunteer and paid-on-call. We do volunteer a lot of time and services, but we're not paid for all those hours. A lot of calls, we're paid for those hours, so that's where we call that. Combination departments, they're staffed by a mixture of career and volunteer. An example would be North Battleford. North Battleford has 3 full-time people on all day long, but they augment with volunteers. Combination department. Moving along, going into separation of department duties. In here, the terms that are on there, I have got to see this already in tests, line functions, customers, internal customers, staff support. It does do you benefit to read the definitions, to look at what these are, but understand the personnel that we're talking about. So staff personnel, we're talking about internal customers, we're talking about ourselves. External customers of the fire department, everyone sees the word customer and thinks we're selling something. We're not selling something. What we're doing is we're trying to provide a service. So we're providing a service to the community. That's what we're here for. If the community didn't care that one house lit on fire, and we had enough spatial separation, just burnt, and they didn't need us. They don't have to have us, or they're not required by law to have us. So take a look at those definitions, page 24. Fire companies, you can have engine companies, truck companies, hazmat companies, ARF, ladder, those type of things. Again, you start getting into engine companies, ladder companies, there's a lot of US terminology. In my experience in Canada, we don't find that a lot. What we can have is a rescue department. For example, Lloyd has a rescue department. Edmonton Airport has an aircraft department, so they are actually specific in tasks. But most times a fire department provides a service, and that service is either going to be rescue, fire suppression, those type of things. You can have brush companies, hazmat companies, fire department personnel. Keep moving along. Anybody, any questions with specializations? You guys good? Okay. Fire department personnel, we're talking about understanding what it takes to get these things. You'll notice on here professional qualifications for the 10-ounce standard. You know, minimum education set by the authority having jurisdiction, can even start with high school diploma, GED, those things. Working your way up the training, you can get yourself into different types of courses that they mention here, like they talk about 1001. Line functions. Line functions are basically basic firefighters perform line of staff functions are the foundation of the uniformed part of the fire service. Providing the service to the community that we're working with is what we're trying to get at. 1001 standards, we have the breakdown, what's all in it. Setting up all those skills are required to be under 1001. You guys are going to learn that right off the bat. Page 28 already brings into the first time you see it is the ICS system, Incident Command System. It is going to be probably in the future. Any course you take past your 1001s, you're probably going to have your ICS 100 to take it. It's 4 hours. It's online. It's free through AEMA, Alberta Emergency Management Association. I did find it the other day on there. It wasn't that hard to find. If you can, you got time, take that. I know you got a lot of stuff on the go right now. Even if this is done, once you've done this, take your ICS 100, and it'll open up more training to you. Yes?
I've done ICS 100 and 200.
Perfect.
So I wonder if I'd be able to transfer it, or if I'd have to probably redo the test.
I don't believe so. If you have a certificate and that, I think you just put it in your training file and you're good to go. A lot of other agencies are being exposed to it, not just police. Other agencies are being exposed to ICS system, even including animals, animal control. You have a cattle rollover or a big feedlot let go in the middle of Brooks, Alberta. It becomes a huge situation. They were wanting the people in charge of like Brooks, Alberta, like the cattle areas there, like those slaughter plants, to have that so they could understand how they could be useful in the system of Incident Command. Incident Command comes up soon too again. Yes, sir.
Just in relation to the review question here, Matt, and for clarification to these guys who are doing their level 1, what is the difference between a level 1 firefighter and a level 2 firefighter? We can talk about some of the differences. Yes. Well, yes and no. We're always working under supervision. There is an incident. The response was that a level 1 firefighter works under supervision. You're not wrong. Direct supervision, absolutely. Absolutely, because there's a level of skills that aren't quite there yet.
Level 1, level 2, this is also where it's going to come into big relevance on your level of training that you need to have. For example, the authority having jurisdiction may deem that you have to be a level 2 firefighter to be on that department. Well, this province is, I think, in my mind, waiting hard for provincial mandates to tell what the line is. Provinces like Quebec have a mandate. Communities of 5,000 people or more, fire departments providing the service will have level 2. Less than 5,000 means 4,999. The minimum standard they have to have is level 1. So you can look at your authority having jurisdiction as well. They'll come into play in this. You have to wonder what do we mandate to have? We try and get everybody in the same beat as the goal to get everybody to 1001 level 2. The reason is that's your professional firefighter qualifications and standards. Probably speaking for you there, I could take my level 1, I don't get my seal, all of a sudden I got to redo it again because they've added stuff, they changed things and moved it along. Get the seal, get the standards, and that'll help too.
But he doesn't get mad about that at all, so it's good.
Yeah, it's not a sore spot.
It's not so much about it because it doesn't bother him.
Yeah.
He's in a good place with it.
You guys are going to get exposed to this a lot in the training. If you see on page 28, 29, it starts going into qualifications, NFPA 1001, 1002, 1003, everything there. People often ask me, do I have to memorize that? Is that something I need to know for the test? It doesn't come up a lot in my experience. Doesn't mean it won't. Understanding what the qualifications are for airport, 1003. I get exposed to these numbers all the time, so they're easy for me. People that don't, they might not understand it. Do you think here in Wainwright or the MD in Wainwright, we're going to be needing to get you guys to the 1003 qualifications of airport firefighting anytime soon? It's expensive. It's heavy cost, and we don't run an airport. There is an airport here, but is it staffed? Does it need fire protection? So those type of things. That's an expensive course, so that's where you lose touch of those. So I wouldn't stress too much about maintaining all those. NFPA 1051 is your wildland firefighter. That's another course we try and run. We try and get people through the officer qualifications of 1021, those type of things. So any of those points make sense to you guys too as we keep going down to the 30, 31, emergency medical responder versus EMT? Any questions on that? Which one's a paramedic? No. If you are EMT-P in some provinces, EMT paramedic, that's a paramedic course. A paramedic course is usually 2 years minimum. I've actually told they're changing the standards. It might be longer than 2 years now. So when you're a paramedic, that's 2. When you guys get to travel and you guys get to go in the States or do something else, travel the world, and you meet some firefighters and they'll say, I'm a firefighter paramedic. I immediately, for years, was like, wow, you're a 1001 firefighter. You have a 2-year paramedic program? That is incredible. Like, I can't believe that you have that. More you learn is some areas are calling paramedic their 2-week course they took. That's a paramedic in some areas. Terminology doesn't fit the training standard. So just be careful on terminology. It's all not downplaying these people at all, not undermining them, not cutting them out. That's the way they call it in their region. They call them paramedic. And where we are, that's pretty much an EMR or even an FMR, first medical responder. So public life safety educator, anybody wants more information about those, just contact us and you can look at how to get those things. Things that you guys need to know, page 33, definitions that might be new to you guys. Hopefully read it, your material is starting to understand it a little bit. Chain of command, that flow chart that we had up there from chief down, you know, it's the same thing with the boot going from top to bottom. Information goes back up to the chain. If I was a firefighter, I went right to the fire chief with an operational requirement, could I break the chain of command? Yeah. The reason it's in place is to have a hierarchy of not necessarily you need to answer this person because they're more equipped than you, they're more educated, whatever. It's to control the steady stream of information and flow. It helps with just information being passed. Unity of command versus span of control and chain of command, divisional labor. These terms you guys are probably going to see on exam. I would strongly recommend understanding these terms. Can I handle 7 supports?
Yeah.
Okay. What about me? I'm the 8th one. Can I handle that? Or can I still handle 7 subordinates? This is we're trying to throw you off. A maximum number of subordinates or functions. So 7 is still the right answer. 3 to 7. Trick questions I'd like to throw at you in those situations are managing 7 below me. So think about that. Specific task, clear cutting task, prevent duplication of effort. You may get division of labor, especially mutual aid calls or large grass fires. You may get this section is going this way, this section is going that way. They may be doing the same task, but you may be dividing it just to make sure we're not doubling up on effort. The flow charts that you see that were on the slides behind me are relevant to understanding the span of control concept and chain of command. You'll notice that unity of command is in there. You keep reporting to one supervisor, even though there may be multiple people at different ranks. You're still reporting to one supervisor. Any questions with unity of command? Going too fast? Makes sense? Okay. Okay. Chain of command, all those things. Going into a few more things. I want you guys to understand the difference between policy, procedure, standard operating procedure, or standard operating guideline. If we made a standard operating procedure on how to start the chainsaw, and it went with 3 steps, it's like the fuel, turn the machine on, check, choke, and start. And actually check the choke as the first thing. You've broken a standard operating procedure. Procedures are more formal. They're step by step. You go outside that, you've broken procedure. A lot of fire departments like to make standard operating guidelines. A guideline could be for the chainsaw, you should start it in this order. If you didn't follow those steps, are you in trouble? That's why we kind of go with guidelines. It paints a broader picture. Procedure is very informal. You have to follow the rules. Policy, same thing. If you department adapts a policy, it's a guide to decision making and organization. Policy can be adapted for anything regarding maybe even attendance to calls, attendance to fire practice. You can have a policy that's 0 tolerance to alcohol. Regards to going to emergency scenes, being here in practice, being here for training, and there may be repercussions in that policy of what you could break it. So that is not a guideline. That is not you shouldn't. It's a policy. You have to follow the policy. Codes and standards. Codes and standards starts getting into different types of elements of the fire service. When you start thinking about codes and standards, I think about the building codes, the fire codes, that aspect of it. That can be a little complicated. I'm teaching you guys to be fire inspectors, but a code is a collection of rules and regulations that's been enacted by law in a particular jurisdiction. So we may have to follow some bylaws, you may have some codes you have to follow that are there. Order and directives. Going on to page 37, emergency medical services interacting with other agencies. Fire departments are notorious for having to utilize all the agencies we can. In event of emergencies, we may have to call EMS, law enforcement, utilities, public works, media, other organizations. We may not even call all these organizations, and they may end up on the scene. Being able to how to deal with these things is an important feature. That's why you learn more and you take more of your command levels. The emergency medical services, there's different levels of rules and regulations. We've been learning over the last little while what our involvement is with AHS. We've been learning a little bit more over the last little while what our medical response is. Just because Wainwright, and I'm talking about I'm talking about Wainwright, it does not mean that Edgerton or Ernle provide the same service or they have the same stance on what they're doing. That again is up to the authority having jurisdiction. Irma and Edgerton, as far as I know, do provide a first medical level response, basically an EMR. They don't go into the next level, but they may have people that have that training too. Going on to the next page, talks about hospitals, disaster management, law enforcement. In here, it's it is a U.S. kind of based textbook with the IFSTA manuals. It talks about different types of law enforcement, local police, county sheriffs, state, provincial, federal agencies. We do get a little bit of that. You can have a city cop, a municipal cop. You can have a Alberta sheriff. You can have RCMP. All on one call. So understanding what's in your area is important. If we said utilities are needed at a scene, what does utilities mean to you guys? We call them utilities. Power, gas, water maybe needed. depends on what we're talking about. Yeah, this is something, the more calls you get more exposure to. Well, fire departments, if you have a structural call, you may need, someone to shut off the power. You may need someone to shut off the gas. You may need someone to even disconnect the power of the line, pole, because if something's burnt off. Understanding who you need. Public Works, what they can do for you. Media, other agencies. Not going too deep into those ones. The review questions at each chapter are important to kind of look through and go through. I do like those questions. It helps paint a good picture. The JPRs that are there, the 511, 52, 535, they're pretty simple, pretty straightforward. That was pretty down and dirty. I could talk for a while about fire department history. Even when they talk about the fires in Jamestown, a lot of people don't associate the fires that were in Jamestown with the use of the fire department tool, the pipe pole. Jamestown was one of the first areas where a lot of the city was burning down. And they actually brought a lot of the whalers in from the fishing industry, and they were pulling down parts of the buildings, exposing gable ends to get at fires, knocking stuff down so fire would stop spreading. Then that tool became so useful, became a part of the fire service. This pipe pole came from the whaling industry. We learn a lot of things from those past events. So understanding, where we come from is important to preventing the accidents in the future. So that's chapter 1. Feel good? Too rush a pace, too easy? Not enough? More time? I'm trying to hit the points that I think would be important for you guys to learn for exams and relevance to the fire department. I could talk about the fun stuff for a long time too, but I think we're going to dive right into chapter 2 then. Good with you guys?
What about everybody online? Are you guys good to go? Yep. Everyone's liking it. Okay, so just let me upload sure. Chapter 2 here now. Show it up on this one too. I dropped them all on the desktop. It's awesome. This these first one went down to the end. I had a hard time.
Yeah. I actually was trying to drop them onto a stick and it wasn't letting me on the copy. It wouldn't do that.
Well, I'm a Mac guy, so they're there now.
That's awesome. You'll notice the case study on the first page talks about a firefighter fighting fire for multiple hours and then collapsing during the easy work that was there. That's the front term of it, the easy work and mop-up stage. It has happened on more than one occasion. It's not the mass incident, that sets the firefighter going off. Now they have a massive coronary. It's dealing within that and then all of a sudden coming down. The heart rate doesn't seem to match. They have a heart episode. They collapse. They die. Firefighter fatalities, injuries, and illness. The killers in the fire service. I read an interesting stat last year that talked about, what is the number one killer for firefighters? And the common thing that the textbooks and everything will tell you for a long time is heart attacks. You guys agree? Have you heard that before? Yeah. So one thing that they mentioned in this study was that they are not including the stats of vehicle response. What they meant was firefighters are hurt, injured, or killed responding to calls, just as much as the heart attack category was there. If they included vehicle accidents, it actually beat heart attacks. I don't have the data in front of me to quote which study it was, but that was something because they don't think of that as the service. Where we were teaching, who we were teaching this for, that is a part of our service. We have to get to the hall safe. We have to get to the scene safe. People think that, I can drive a fire truck fine, fast, and fine and good. I don't know about you guys, but in our community where we live, we have the four-way flashers. We don't have something that we can turn on to tell us community that we're going and how fast you really need to be going anyway. Just get to the fire hall safe, do what you can, and travel as safely as you possibly can. We don't have any special rules that let us violate traffic laws. Even our emergency lights and our siren going on our truck. Does that give us the right of way to four-way stop sign? Can we blow the stop sign? Yeah, if you're already in an intersection, there's a different thing. Yeah, depends on who's running blocker for us. The whole point is, sometimes people think that they're in an emergency vehicle, they have a red light, that means they're going through because other people have to stop for us. Red lights in the fire service and the siren going, all the lights asks for permission. So understanding firefighter fatalities and injuries are important. The numbers in here are scary. If you guys haven't looked at this before, the 72 firefighter fatalities was the lowest in 2010. They've been averaging like 100 deaths a year for, I can't remember how many years it says in here. It's incredible why there's that many deaths. A lot of people quickly assume that that's people who die in fires. Not all of us that die in fires. They were actually killed from the workload that's going on there. They had a heart attack after, during. They're killed by the line of duty. You'll see this term LODD, line of duty deaths, that comes up. The stats here on page 2 or 47, table 211, talk about the deaths just in the last 10 years. It's averaging over like about 100 a year. Fireground injuries, thousands of injuries. This is just U.S. stats. Comes from the U.S. Firemen and FEMA. Total injuries. So you can understand why this is a big, important deal for the fire departments to try and limit this. We don't want people hurt. We don't want people killed. That's less people respond, less people come to calls, those type of things. Making sure, moving along going on page 48, 49, understanding this term. You guys will see this probably in the test. Illnesses. Illness that we get to hazmat has to do with exposure to. An acute versus chronic. Acute is something that lasts a couple days. Chronic that can last with you for a lifetime, long term, that type of thing. Acute, sharp, severe. They put the book in here. Like acute could be maybe having a cold for a couple days, and chronic could be something that lasts, like cancer or diabetes, as long as you have. In here, under the illness sections, understanding the importance of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, drug and alcohol dependence, stress-induced hypertension, tobacco use. When you are in the fire service or emergency services in general, you are exposed to higher stress situations. You are exposed to the uglier side. I'd like to include the military on this side of it too. You're exposed to the ugly things. Learning how to deal with them will save your life. I don't mean this in regards to you'll prevent an injury from ever happening. You'll prevent yourself from ever being exposed to something. Learning how to deal with it. For those of you that actually have had people you know in the past in the fire service, even me growing up, I always heard of people that were kind of going through, they were firefighters, and you could tell they must have had a bad call. They were all getting drunk. I've had past fire chiefs that have said that was one of the coping mechanisms. They would go on a bender for a few days, dealt with the death of a kid or something. Next thing you know, they wake up a week later still just drinking their face off. And they didn't realize what they were doing. They thought they were doing something healthy. And it turns out it's completely opposite. There's new stuff out there that, like Dr. Gil Martin actually talks to emergency services. He does the psychology for a lot of emergency services, deals with workers. He's been doing this for over 25 years. He's been working with Oklahoma City bombing all the way to 9/11 to further stuff on. In his experience, he found that firefighters and police, there's the two he focused on, have the skills and coping mechanism mostly there to deal with like post-traumatic stress disorder situations. How do I deal with it? Get back in routine. Believe it or not, volunteer firefighters, like a lot of what we're dealing with, actually are forced into a healthier situation. You have a bad call, you gotta go to work the next day. You still go to the gym. You still go home to see your kids. Sometimes people are working at full time. That breaks their routine up. Now they don't feel like going to the gym. Now they don't feel like going and doing something because they were on their day off. They can sit and stew in it. Volunteer firefighters usually have a little bit of a running head start in that regard because they're forced back in routine. The one thing I want to talk about real quick on there is the exposure to diabetes. Heart disease has been up there for number one for a killer for fire departments, but diabetes is actually starting to creep up there and be number one thing for firefighters for illness and injuries. Diabetes is actually not necessarily caused entirely by diet. Diabetes in the type 2 can be caused by a stress environment. Your body can start having different reactions to stress. You can start thinking about things different. You're in a state of hyperactivity. Your body will start releasing more proteins from your pancreas, and then it starts going into your liver, and that starts to implant itself with sugar and energy. You'll put on weight. It's harder on you. Next thing you know, you've got a higher count of, I can't remember the term in my head right now. I have the book at home. But it talks about that leads to diabetes. When you signed up for this job, you never signed up for it going, there's a chance I'll get cancer, there's a chance I'll get diabetes, there's a chance I'll get this. But it is the truth in the matter. If it's being exposed to emergency services, you are putting your health on risk above just doing calls. So learning how to deal with it, exercise, proper mental habits, cardiovascular disease prevention, respiratory diseases. A lot of these respiratory diseases can be prevented by wearing your SCBA. I don't want to put it that simple, but that's what they're trying to hammer on you. The more you read these chapters about firefighter safety, you know, that whole thing about tasting smoke, you know, you got to really get it in your system. You got to, you know, get used to it. They talk about the old boys that were going in the fires. They weren't even wearing packs because they thought the packs were useless. You're watching the documentaries that are out there about the history of New York Fire Department, Chicago, Boston. Like, they actually almost fought it for a while. Like, we don't need no stinking breathing air tanks. And today, we know how much that is, you know.
Still do.
Yeah. You know, there's still stuff out there that people fight these things. But anyway, that resistance to change chapter comes back. Cancer. Different provinces have different things that are going on in this country. Manitoba has been cutting edge and leading the way for occupational cancers and even the volunteer firefighters, paid on call, career fire departments. I believe Manitoba is the highest right now. They have 12 cancers that are under occupational health coverage. So if you got brain cancer, lung cancer, I can't remember them all offhand, you were actually able to get provincial assistance. They've been going all over the world bringing this to, because that's what firefighters have been having. Firefighters have been exposed to a lot of these elements, types of calls, different hazards that are associated with the calls, like smoke inhalation, different exposures that you're getting to chemicals. They've been dying sooner because of cancer. So they are finding if you have the cancer stuff to help them out. You know, if anybody knew I was going to die of brain cancer at 57, would you still do the job? It's easy to say this side of fence, like, yeah, I'm doing a lot of good things. When you come to 55 and you want to be home with your kids, you know, if you could do it again, would you do it again? So that's where they want to make sure people are having coverage, you know, at least help. I can't speak for Alberta, but I'm hoping Alberta will be that way too. Diabetes, I talked about, drug and alcohol abuse. People find whatever ways to cope with the different stresses they have. Basically, this chapter, this paragraph starts talking about drug and alcohol is not the way to get that. Using employee assistance programming, anything you can do outside of falling on those type of mechanisms. It even talks about high blood pressure. High blood pressure can be a sign of stress that you're dealing with. So managing stress, there's pages out here on here. I'm not going to insult you by reading them out loud. Read pages 52, 53. There's probably going to be a test question on stress. What is the type of physical stress, you know, emotional stress, behavioral systems. You know, if you're thinking about it, anything outside your norm can be attributed to that. Finding a way to getting help, relaxation, social networks, tobacco use dependence, exposure-related diseases, all that's on page 54. One thing that is touched on is the EAP, Employee Assistance Programs. Not every fire department has it. The MD here, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but we do have access to victim services. If you have problems with something, you can contact victim services. You don't know how to get hold of victim services, go up your chain of command, say, can you help me find somebody just to talk to? I'm dealing with that fatality, I can't shake it, I'm having trouble with it, you know, I'm trying to get back in routines. All I keep seeing is this image over and over in my head again. Can you give me some help? There was a time in the fire service that was a culture of weakness, that you asking for help, that was a weakness thing. Today, we have it really pushed on people that it's not if you'll see something bad in your career, it's when. So you will see something in this career, and I use the word career because you are taking professional level training. This may not be your career that focuses and gets your money, but you are working to professional standard. So that professional standard can make you part of what your career is with the fire service. You will see something that bothers you someday, and have the humility, have that self-awareness going, this is bothering me, and understand it is okay to get help. So, NFPA standards, we're talking about fire safety regulations and standards. You'll see everything from NFPA 1403. 1403 has been exposed to this MD very, very hard, understanding what has happened. Learning lessons that happened in Edgerton with the house explosion, even doing things as right as they could. One of the first things that the people that came to investigate what happened, when they heard that there was a training exercise going on for live fire and acquired structure, that was one of the first lines that you'll see on there is NFPA 1403. It's the standard for live fire training evolutions. I have access to that checklist. It's over like, I can't remember how many pages. It's something like 200 items long. That item is, if you are going to get a farmhouse or something for you to burn in, you have to follow this checklist if you are following NFPA 1403. Because that standard exists doesn't mean we're necessarily following it. But if it never happened, they have standards to go look up to say, did you do this? Did you do this? So, like the saying I like to use a lot with talking to John and other things we have going on, the age of ignorance is coming to an end. I really know is only going to get us so far. Understanding the training, understanding where we're going. So there's other ones in there, 1451, 1400, 1410. Again, I'm not asking you to memorize these things. I think it'd be rude of them to ask you to memorize all these items. Just understand that there is a safety program. There is standards like 1500 that are set up for safety. Those topics that can be in there can be policies, procedures, understanding of training, facilities, physical requirements, and those type of things. Emergency operations, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about on page 57. A risk management plan and rehab. When you see those yellow boxes on the side, they are a big telltale. This is a term you should know. Understand the term and how to apply it. Risk management plan is a written plan that analyzes the exposure to hazards, implement appropriate risk management techniques, establishes criteria for monitoring their effectiveness. What we're trying to get at here is there a hazard? What PPE is needed? What are we going to do for operations to mitigate this hazard? Having a plan. Rehab is another thing that we're working on a lot, is understanding we can have departments out there that actually have a policy of we only use 2 bottles and then it's mandatory to go to rehab. Any idea what might be in rehab? What else? What would you think you have in rehab for a firefighter that's gone through 2 bottles of air at a working structure fire? Water. Yeah. I want a cool area just to sit, to get out of the sun if it's a daytime call, get out of the elements if it's a nighttime call or bad weather, good weather. Do you think that would be a good place to have a medical component that might be there taking blood pressure, monitoring your vitals? Yeah. So that's where rehab is also coming into play, is understanding that those areas are going to be there for us and our safety and our benefit. You know, getting an ambulance to come along and go, okay, are you guys doing all right? And where we talked about the beginning of the case study of the firefighter working for so long, doing the easier work when everything's slowing down, having a big heart attack. Facility safety is under the 1500. Medical and physical requirements. There can be fire departments out there, volunteer, paid on call, career, that will have physical fitness requirement standards. You may have testing. The same thing I tell a lot of people if they're looking at doing testing is to what standard. Looking at what standards you're going to. There were departments out there that you had to lift an extension ladder off the truck by yourself because that is something that they thought they may have to do in a call with their call volume. So one of the requirements was to take, me at between 5'10" and 6'1", depending on which convenience store I'm leaving. That height can be really difficult for me on the side of trucks, lifting this up, getting a ladder up and off, an extension ladder with myself up to the ground safely. Those things, is it relevant? Does it meet a physical standard? Those type of things, I don't know if that's necessarily true. problem they're getting around is how and what are they hooking to. So they're, mark my words, they'll have it. The standard of care is the level of care that all persons should receive. Care does not meet the standard is considered inadequate. Denying somebody a standard of care because of their ethnic background, their cultural status, their sex, their whatever, all those things can be a department liable. Making sure that we're just, best answer I give people doesn't say what kind of people, it's any people. You know, denying them because of any reason is absolutely wrong. We are to provide a standard of care. The Everybody Goes Home initiative from the states, just trying to make sure that everybody goes home at the end of the shift, end of the career, you know, end of the jobs, so they actually have a retirement to go through there. Good program. Again, that's more for your reading. I don't believe that we have anything testing on that program. Risk management. The bottom of the page, a quick version of the risk management. What we try and do in the fire department is you risk a lot to save a lot, risk little to save little, and risk nothing to save nothing. Where this comes into play is, well, people can be influenced by the public. Whose safety is number one? You, as firefighters, the public, or even we'll go, somebody else, a contract that's coming in. Which one is number one? The firefighters are number one. You have to look at yourself. The best way to tell people is, if there's an emergency going on, whose emergency is it? It's theirs. So they already have the emergency going on. We are coming to help. We have to make sure we are as safe as possible. Something you may come into, even something right now. Someone's out ice fishing on the lake. They're in their vehicle. The truck goes to the water. They're stuck in the vehicle. They can't go under. They go under the ice, and the truck's now under there. Their buddies are there. They call 911. They call Wainwright and Edgerton. We all scramble out the lake. How many minutes is that now for us to get to Clear Lake? problem, but being careful of that. Safety vehicle operations, having situational awareness, defensive driving, understanding if you are driving apparatus, your increased stopping distance are there. You have a reaction time, you have a bigger truck, you need more stopping distance. You have weather conditions because you're never going out when it's perfectly dry and sunny. You're always going out with crappy times, limited visibility. So be aware of that. Drive defensively. 67. I just kind of let you guys go through that, understanding what defensive driving is. Fire apparatus, department vehicles, responding in private vehicles. We talked a little about both those. Making sure that you're taking turns at proper speeds, emergency response, leaving the station slowly, approaching intersections cautiously. Like I say again, you guys, don't ever assume that you're going to get the right of way. I don't know about you guys, but this town sure has taught me a lot of lessons. I don't know what it's like in Edgerton or urban communities, but I'll get the people that roll the Sunday drive a lot. I'm responding to a call. I'm in my personal vehicle. We have our four ways on because that's our bylaw here. Is there's no extra lights. We can put our four ways on. And I get the citizen that's there, and all you see are the knuckles and hat, and they are looking out the window. And every four-way stop that they come to, they are waving traffic through. You know, someone's coming this way, they're waving them through. The rear view mirror is there for the decoration for another thing that they hang on there. I don't know what's there.
They always have an Alberta Motor Association sticker, on the back. Always.
It is bizarre. I don't understand that. I can be guilty of not doing rear view mirror checks, but for that many blocks, and they always turn right at fire hall too. It's really weird. But another thing that we don't talk enough about is railway crossings, treating them with respect, slowing down, looking to make sure it's going. Don't always trust the railway symbols. Looking at your stopping distance. They have things in here like do not blind oncoming drivers, turn off your wigwags at night. I have got to see them in the test before. I don't know if it was a practice test or what I did, but they actually asked a question like that, so that's where it stands out in my mind. We okay on defensive driving? You guys understand that there's a lot of bullets there, and we could talk about them all, but we're not doing a driving course today. We're just spending this. Page 71 starts talking about internal baffles that allow liquid traffic between compartments in a controlled manner, provide it basically stops the truck from being pushed by moving water. Anybody that has experience with older apparatus, they'll find that the baffles either rusted out or they didn't have any. You start driving a truck with a half full tank of water, you try and stop in your normal stopping distance you're doing, and that water that's moving, impacts your brakes and it actually keeps sliding you along. It's a real hazard. Understanding what the apparatus you have can determine how you drive. For example, the base, we had a tanker out there that's quite full, drives fine. Drive that thing half empty, all that water moving, that giant tank, it'll actually start moving the truck on. You take the curve too fast and it's got water moving, it can even take you over. So the caution box on here is all fire apparatus handled differently when loaded with water. And I'd like to even caution you further, they handle differently when they're half full of water. So quarter full, third full. So a baffle can be a partial or bulkhead use of a surge effect and purposefully loading. So that's what they talk about with baffles and tanks. In here, they have non-emergency operations, how you should respond. Still sit down, wear your seatbelts, 3 points of contact getting off the truck. Still use that cognitive awareness. One thing I got told years ago, if you're sitting in a seat, even if it's a rear-facing seat, doors on your left-hand side, don't use your left hand to open the door. Use your opposite hand. Forces your body to turn, and it actually gets you that much closer to looking left, looking right. Is it safe to get out? Your 3 points of contact, making sure that it's safe to get out there. Last thing we need is people to get hit. There is a seatbelt pledge that's been out there. The culture of the fire service a lot is, well, we need to save time. We have to get there as fast as we can to help people. So I'm going to address on the way of the call. Every year we hope that the culture changes, that we are starting to get people more used to the idea that, okay, I need to be safe. The truck needs to be safe. I've known a few firefighters that have been hurt over the years. They got T-boned by a drunk driver going to a call, or coming home from a call was the one I'm thinking more specifically. And guys that got hurt the most were the ones that weren't wearing their seatbelts. So understanding that that is there for you to safe. And I always tell people too, when you drove here, did you put your seatbelt on? Well, of course, I have to. So why do you get your fire truck and not wear your seatbelt? I have been guilty in the past, and we're doing everything we can to change it. So Going on to safety with tools and equipment, unpowered tools, you got types of pike poles, sledgehammers, claw hammers, all your force electric tools. Those type of tools, there's safety that's for different each one of those. Someone can be looking for damaged heads if they have parts that move, or the handles in good shape. Power tools, following the manufacturer guideline, you'll see that comes up in here. That's going to be a good blanket answer for you. A lot of the time, follow manufacturer guidelines. The reason it's a good blanket answer is because it's true. This textbook can't go through what the safety precautions are for each type of chainsaw that's out there. The book would be too big. Every piece of equipment that firefighter is exposed to, if we did all that, it'd be too big. They have to go with follow the manufacturer guidelines. So making sure you're wearing appropriate PPE for each of those things. Safety and training. This is a big thing for today in the modern fire service because it's an absolute travesty to lose a firefighter in training. Training safe, training smarter. You'll notice in here it talks a little bit about maintaining personal safety and training evolutions and live fire training. We got to start going to 78, 79. Live fire training has changed. I was often exposed to my live fire training was we lit an old farmhouse on fire that was donated to the fire hall. We would go put it out, relight it, put it out, relight it, put it out, relight it, put it out. Now you have like the NFPA 1403 that more departments are going, well, if you're going to do that in a live fire required structure, you need to follow this guideline. Okay, so that's really way too hard and defeats the purpose. In a roundabout way, if we got a house donated to the fire hall and we followed NFPA 1403, we have to remove it to studs almost. There has to be like no shingles on the roof, no carpet, no contents, no nothing. So it doesn't behave like a fire anymore. So what's the point? So that's where it loses that appeal. Live fire training, you'll even see, is going safer and safer and safer. You guys, the weekend we're doing the live fire training is June 28th weekend, the calendar says. You guys all have the calendar?
Yeah, it's June 25th.
Yeah, whatever that weekend is.
Supposed to be 26th.
So that weekend, I haven't confirmed, but that could be a rodeo weekend. So that could throw people off in that.
Can't make it if it's rodeo weekend.
Yeah, so I will see what we have, but the tower's almost booked. So you guys, when you get exposure to that tower, you're going to see that we're trying to make it as safe and as realistic as possible. A lot of people have been chastising the fire school, even up there in Alberta, what used to be called Alberta Fire Training School, which is Fire Center, it's under Lakeland College, because they switched their tower to propane. Well, it's not real. It's a cement building with a controlled amount of combustibles anyway. How real was it to begin with? So people used to break the rules and put more fuel in, put more gas in, get it hotter, get more smoke, get everything there. We're trying to make it as safe as possible in the fire service because of how much of a shame it would be to have somebody die in training. You want to get the skills there for them. That's not the point of live fire training, is to throw them in the holes, to get the skills to be able to work and survive in a situation. So the culture has changed to live fire training.
You're right, and that's the way it is that weekend.
Is it? Yeah. I have a sneaking feeling it was digging up on me. Like, I bet you that's rodeo weekend. I have a talent. I'm sorry, everybody out there. My hidden talent is booking courses on weekends that has something going on. So my talent streak continues. And if the tower isn't available that weekend, we may have to move it. But you go the weekend after your Canada Day weekend. I don't want to cut this course short too, so we'll see what we can do. Maintaining and servicing equipment, emergency operations safety. Page 79, I didn't want to draw your attention to NIMS, the National Incident Management System. This is basically the US version of the ICS. As far as I know, in Canada, I haven't met a department yet that says we follow NIMS. Not saying they don't exist, I just haven't been exposed to them. ICS is the route we're going to go. There was at one time an equivalency. If you end up transferring to the States somehow, going to work in the States, they go, well, you need NIMS. And there was a time if you have a current ICS, it could transfer over. I don't have that information today, but talks about reporting only one supervisor, remaining constantly aware of situations, managing your air supply. ICS models are based off NIMS. So, preparedness, making sure you're ready, willing, and able to go respond to a call. Even preparedness can be as simple as having your gear ready. Is it clean? Is it in service? Are you in service? Are you ready to go? All your equipment. Emergency scene safety, follow your supervisor's orders, wear your PPE, work as a team, follow department SOPs, SOGs. The whole point in emergency scene safety is to get everyone to understand that we are a team. It is a team environment. We are trying to make sure that we are going to come home together. We're all leaving here together. Everybody comes home, and basically follow those things to get there. Do a risk-benefit analysis for every action. One thing on safety that I want to talk to you guys about. I'm your incident commander. I tell you guys to ladder the roof, go up, ventilate that roof, which means I'm going to get you guys, you're going to learn about that later. You're going to cut a hole, and you're going to vent it so all smoke and hot gases can go out. You see something that's unsafe. Perhaps fire's already going through. The roof is collapsing. And I'm on the radio and I'm going, get up there and ventilate it, because I'm on the outside. I'm on the street side of the building. You're on the back side. And I'm ordering you to go up there. I've given you a direct order as your incident commander. Do you have the right to go now? You guys, I want to make sure that's clear for all of you that are new. I tell you to get out there and get on the traffic. I tell you to do something, and it is not safe. Cars are sliding everywhere. No one's stopping. It's too dangerous to be out there. It's not safe for you to be there. You can tell the incident commander, no, it's not safe to be there. You can actually go, no, your direct order doesn't count here. Safety is number one. Safety at roadway incidents, making sure that you're parking the correct way. I like the diagram on page 8.2, 2.3.4. Teaches you a little bit about how to make yourself safer, make your scene safer, protect not just the occupants of the car or that hazard, but also controlling that hazard to make sure it's safe for you. In this diagram, quite often they show that where the wheels are pointing for the fire truck. This diagram is up here. I think where are the slides? This one. They'll even show you the wheels, how they turn. If you have the wheels turning back into the incident, it can be a hazard depending on the situation. As a driver operator, it's even important to know which way your wheels are turning. Any idea why we talk about this? What's the modern world that we live in today? The modern world that we see to live in today is people are interested to do this, even if it's illegal. They want to film you getting closer, and they're doing this. When you are looking at an incident this way out your left side or left window, your tendency will be to drift into the left. You will slam into the fire truck. You may hurt somebody. You may kill somebody. They may even clip a couple cones. So remember, people are not out there looking for you necessarily. I always talk about emergency scenes, especially traffic accidents, like the bad ones we're talking about here too, or even the little ones. It's like a magic trick. People always want to know how you did it, but they don't really want to know because it's something they don't really want. They like the illusion. So when people are driving by, they're trying to get a glimpse of, I wonder if somebody was killed. Like, what's happening here? But they really don't want to see. They don't want to know. They think that they do. It's kind of like that magic trick in a way. So understanding that you're trying to do this to protect yourself and the scene. This includes even getting off the truck and safe. But yeah.
I was just going to say, Matt, the other thing that we saw at the last call we were on, last big one, was, and we talked about it that night, was there were drivers that were a little out of hand just because they were annoyed that we detoured them.
Yeah.
They would just punch the people coming around the corner by our guys. It's not just right at the scene. It's even
we've had that too.
Traffic controls a mile away. That guy could be dealing with some issues too.
People always talk about, well, Highway 14 isn't a busy highway. But shut it down for 20 minutes and see what happens. Like, you'll have I'm not even exaggerating, there's over a mile or more of cars that are backed up. These people are used to driving let's just call it a rural provincial highway. They are not expecting to be delayed half an hour. You're stuck on the 401 or something, a big city highway, the QE2 outside the city, there's a traffic accident, the Yellowhead, whatever. You go, ooh, I had a traffic accident, I'm late for work. Highway 14, people are not expecting that, and they don't have the patience or tolerance in that, I find, especially in rural communities. But, even the city, I was stuck in traffic in the city, and I'm a country boy, and I really was just infuriating mad. I'm watching, it's like a scene out of Office Space. There's a person with a walker going down the street, and they're blocks ahead, and you're still stuck in traffic, and it infuriates me. And, I try to give those drivers a little bit of a leeway because they just don't understand. We're trying to do our job, and that's where a good PR person, good chief, if there's complaints, filtering these things, spinning it the right way will help the fire department. But
there's also ways to combat that too. Like, what are some resources that we could utilize that would help us with that?
Person B.
Law enforcement. What else? What's one that would love to come out and play with us?
Carillion was really good.
Carillion's another one.
With actual barricades and stuff.
One that we don't think about very often is the MD. We can utilize the MD to reroute traffic for our purposes. They have the signage, they have the manpower, and they are more than willing to come out and play. So it's another resource.
Whatever agencies are available to your jurisdiction. So that brings up just now highway scenes. So the next slide or two, I think, talks about crowd control and control zones. We don't, I think it's coming up on board. So it's all right. The next chapter here talking about scene management and crowd control. Crowd control and your incident hazards. This is a test question. When we start getting into here, your control zones. Control zones, you'll see terms cold zone, warm zone, hot zone, and you may even see the term hazard area. You're talking about a two-vehicle accident. They've hit, they're still stuck together. There's a driver, like it's T-bone. They are pinned in. Your hazard area is right around that whole vehicle. The hot zone is the area affected immediately around it. There have been distances, like this is where we talk about a blanket answer. The hot zone can be whatever the IC deems it as. Around a vehicle accident like that, we could be talking about 25 feet. All the way around both vehicles, that's my hot zone. There isn't a blanket answer. The hot zone of a vehicle accident, it is 10 meters. You can try, but maybe there's a different type of vehicle involved. Maybe there is a lot of fuel leaking. So the hot zone with there being a static answer is not true. What you need to understand is a hot zone and a cold zone, where they come from, what you find in each. For example, where do you find your staging area? The answer here is in the cold zone. Where would the command post typically be found? Cold zone. If you have a RIT team there, cold zone. You can have access control points going from one zone to the other. This is more common in hazmat. So you'll actually be in the warm zone. You'll be staging some equipment out the cold zone. People are going into the hot zone to attack a leaking valve of some type. You actually can have a control point. This is the only place you go in and out. The reason is it could be in view of the command post or whatever we have. Environmental conditions. So there may be control points to go into each. Which brings up the next points about talking about personal accountability. Personal accountability and passport system, SCBA tag system, computer-based electronic systems, they're all a way to control your people, not control, monitor your people, how many people you have on scene, what are they doing. You can even have them GPS coordinated so you can even know where they are. The computer-based systems, we do have the technology here for us to be able to do that. We can hook up a laptop. You can tag in with a key fob to our packs, and you can actually have a personal laptop in the truck, see how much air you have. They can even send you a signal. We don't use it because we don't have the time to get it set up and using properly. So archaic. It is archaic. The modern systems and the modern packs out there are even more cutting edge. Understand, just for you guys out there doing your reading and studying, looking at what a personal accountability system is. It can be as simple as a tag system, the passport system, SCBA tag system, and the computer-based system. They may ask you a question on types of control or monitoring. It may be one of those type of answers. Doing good? If you guys are tired or it's been a long day at work, whatever you got to do, stand up, just stretch here a little bit. We're going to keep plugging along because we have a limited amount of time. We're good on chapter 2? Yeah. You guys good as well?
I should have mentioned too, Matt. Like, I don't know what the final exam is like, but this unit exam for this chapter, it asked a lot of questions that had to do with NFPA standards and one type or another.
You know, I looked at those questions too, and I wondered, like, geez, would they really be that mean to you? Potentially, because the practice ones that are there. If you guys haven't downloaded the IFSTA app that is talking about, when you log on to Resource One, they advertise the heck out of it. I like that because they have the practice questions in there. And if you start seeing a lot of those NFPA come up with practice questions, maybe a good idea to write something down. In my experience, it's not something they usually do to people. 1001 standard, level 1, level 2, 1500, safety, like that, because it's a big part of it. So those things have been in there. You know, asking the 1003 standards is not something I usually see, but like you said, it very well may. The communications chapter, I'm going to go through this one a little bit quicker just because we've been exposed to radios a little bit more here now. Like, this is not where I'm teaching a class that's never had a radio. I'm even looking around the room and everybody in the room has a radio except for me. so I'm the only one without. You've been exposed to it. Now it's just going to be fine-tuning what they might be looking for tests. I'm on chapter 3, page 96, talking about telecommunication centers. They're really talking about the first 2 pages in here, the PSAP, the Public Safety Answering Point. It really seems that they're just painting a picture of what 911 service could be. Basically, someone phones a number, goes to dispatcher, and they dispatch the appropriate agency. Or in some cases, they phone 911 and they say they need medical, it goes to another dispatcher, whatever they need to do. One thing I do want to mention here is there is a service provided with your cell phone, especially in this province, you pay your 911 fee. So if you have a cell phone, even if it's not hooked up to a particular network, and there's battery to it, 911 is supposed to work. So you go in the break room to Lakeland Communications, rip open a box. As long as it's got power, it should be able to call 911.
It does.
So,
although why you would break into somewhere and then call 911, I don't know.
You need an emergency situation. You never know what's coming up.
Yeah, deactivated cell phones. We had that 911 was being swamped by a deactivated cell phone, and there must have been a kid just dialed 911. It does work.
Yeah.
It wasn't so, and then it comes back to a jumble of numbers because it's not associated to a phone number, so you couldn't even call it back.
Yeah.
So we had to go by GPS location. It's brutal.
I've heard that a few times, actually. You look at where the communication system is now today, even the ability for dispatchers or control agencies like that to be able to ping the cell phone, explain that technology to my dad, that they'll be able to do that. Some areas with the amount of towers, they can triangulate and get a signal down to within so many meters of accuracy. I think we might have a question or something flashing, but look at where we are today and where we were. You'll see station call boxes. If you travel to places like San Francisco, Boston, some of those areas, they still have their call boxes that are out there. They were used all the way up until even the 90s, sometimes 2000s. So some of these areas, like if you look at the public alerting system, radio, telegraph alarm, fire alarm boxes, radio fire alarm boxes, those boxes would send signals to the fire hall by a coded message. You would actually be in the fire hall in your area, and you would get a box alarm. The box alarm would go ping, ping, pause, ping, 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 pause, ping. It could be 3 or even 4 digits. So you had to listen, and that was box 231. So then you had to know on your map which box you were going to. So you missed that bell, you were talking or something, you lost crucial information. So you learned how to get those box alarms down, and you learned where you were. And things that are in here, if you're answering calls, it is a skill that you guys go through. It's just answering an emergency call, answering a non-emergency call. Basically, if you're in the uniform, like I like to tell people all the time, be polite, be professional, be to the point, and be as courteous as you possibly can. So identify yourself, what you're going on, ask for emergency. Try and remember, if you are taking an emergency phone call, you are not going to solve their problem. You're not going to talk them through it really necessarily. They want to get information to you, and they want resources coming. So I used to talk about this because it was my own life experience. I read this chapter even when I was doing 1001s going, what do I need to know? Like they phone 911. We have people that have called the hall in the past for an emergency, and they don't want to use 911 because they're afraid of being billed. They don't want to call 911, want to be a bother. Yeah, don't want to be bothering anybody. I've talked to people in Edgerton and even in Irma. They have told me that this has happened there as well. They call a firefighter and go, so-and-so's having problems, or we're having this. Then they go, well, why don't you call 911? It's not usually the answer that should come out first, but it's something that comes out there is because people just, try to be able
and worse yet, and this is instances I've heard of that have happened where firefighters will now respond, not alerting 911, not alerting the department, not alerting the incident command, not alerting the officer corps, nothing. They will respond because so-and-so called me and they're concerned about their carbon monoxide detection. And now they go over there in a personal vehicle to a potential emergency without any accountability. First of all, accountability. Nobody knows that they're going. They have no equipment. They have no action plan. and they have nobody coming to look for them if they go down.
And no PPE. Okay, so just. Yeah. Yeah, stuff like that happens. If you do take an emergency call, what are you supposed to get for information? So this is the reason I ask you guys. It's happened to me. I was at the fire hall. I'm training. Like phone rings, and it's someone going, "Yeah, this is on fire," and I was just caught off guard. That's where you have to look back in your training. Who is calling? What's the emergency? What else do you need? Callback number. Yeah.
What's the emergency?
Address. I heard. Yeah. What are you actually going to? That's what we need. You start thinking about the who, what, where, when. You know, almost that. You need almost everything but the why, and any other pertinent information. So callback number, great thing to get. People, that's one thing that I usually forget is to get a callback number. How do I get a hold of you? If people are calling a number here, we don't have the ability to go, no, you have to stay on the phone. They hang up to try and call somebody else. We don't have that ability, so understanding to get as much information as you can is important. Dispatching emergency services. It's best to have visual, station lights, audible, electronic. This is for full-time departments where you actually have notification systems in there. Get all three areas of senses going. Get your visual. Volunteer fire departments use pagers or some sort of monitoring system. I started out in a volunteer service where you have, like on the page 102, figure 37, we had a pager system. I liked the pager system for a long time. It's so light, so convenient. But the radios have so much benefit. They're expensive, but you already have your radio. You already have your pager system. It's a very big, cumbersome keychain for a lot of us, but you know, at least it's there. It's all ready to go. I used to love it though, because that pager system, if you ever needed a tight jam, I could just hit the replay button and it would replay the last emergency, and I go, oh, I gotta go. It actually take off. Yeah, and we had an air raid siren where we were too. The pager system went down, town siren went off. So
We still do. That's the test siren.
well, it's better than the all as well siren.
That was the false alarm siren.
The all as well siren too.
That was both sides.
Internal communications, radio systems. You can have fixed, mobile, or portable. What is the difference between a fixed radio, a mobile radio, or a portable? What would you call each one? What do you guys have in front of you here? It's portable radio, so that one's off the list. You know, it's a handheld, something you can take. It's usually battery operated there. Mobile, do you think that'd be one you could drive around? So it's for truck mounted one. Fixed,
Do you have one?
we don't have one here.
Fixed, we don't have one.
A base station, basically a 911 would be an example. What they have to talk to us could be an example of like a base station radio, or what you'd actually say in here, a fixed system.
There used to be a fixed system here. It became very old and cumbersome. There is a fixed station for the village of Edgerton. There's one in the village office, and for the town of Wayne, there's one also in the town office. Now, what are some reasons why we would have a fixed station in both of those buildings? Pardon me?
EOCs.
EOC, absolutely. An EOC, an Emergency Operations Center. So this would be if something, Wayne's going through an ice storm.
Tornado goes through town.
Tornado goes through town. What it is essentially you developed the resources have grown so much. The resources needed to combat the incident have grown so much that we are now having to involve multiple agencies and governments in an emergency operations center. So that's where you're going to see a lot of fixed location systems. They'll have backup battery systems. It's a means of, if all else fails, we will have a radio to communicate with.
Different types of signal out there. You can have analog signals, digital signals, different types of transmission. Digital, repeater, or trunk systems. In here it talks about the breakdown of each. Digital signals, repeaters. You can have radio to radio, like it shows on here. You can have a repeater system that goes from radio to tower antenna back down. It's a system we try and use a little bit more. You can tell because if you're in a bad area, can't reach that tower, you're having trouble getting communications. Communication goes out the window. It can be affected by several things. It was on page 109, radio limitations, distance, physical barriers, interference, ambient noise. Fireground channels, not something we deal a lot with on page 108, just backing up a little bit. Fireground channels, we do have exposure to it in the talk around channel versus the the attack channels. We can change channels. We have the ability. There are fire departments out there that you may have a channel so busy with multiple calls going on, they actually get you to switch to another channel. Each channel you get set up in a large city system costs money, so they try not to have too many. Dynamic regrouping, radio communications, like there's a lot in here. Basically,
there's a few questions on trunk systems within the quiz and the test map.
This trunk system, I was reading a little bit more about it even yesterday, and the trunk system that talks about on page 108, things that they mentioned a little bit like exam questions was the multi-group call, which is used to transmit calls to true or more talk groups. This is not something I have a lot of experience with for both these types of systems and a private call. There's also dynamic regrouping, which talks about the emergency alert feature. It sends a signal to an agency's dispatch center. A trunk system, I am not fully aware if you can have a trunk system and a repeater system, if you can hide the two, or if it's just another signal that goes through. But
in relation to, has anyone here ever heard of the AFRAC system? AFRAC is an Alberta radio responder frequency something system. It's a provincial radio system that the government of Alberta is trying to push through, where what will happen is it will allow agencies to be able to communicate with each other regardless. Like, so fire could talk to police, could talk to medical,
could talk to stars.
This is an example of Trump's system. A problem that they're running into right now is infrastructure-wise and licensing fees-wise. They're deciding on a radio right now for this system, but they will probably cost. I think lowball it would be about $8,000 a radio, plus licensing per year. I mean, so there is an advantage to it. It would be wonderful, especially in a rural setting when we're trying to communicate with EMS and trying to bring them towards us. Police, trying to communicate with them as well, being able to find a location, especially without rural addressing. But so a trunk system would be wonderful, but it's also $8,000 a pop for one radio. Yeah, so
that's expensive.
So
sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good.
This multi-group call map in our system, would the comparable be like if we had the train call a couple weeks ago and she patched us into Wainwright?
I think that's more of a digital connection ability through the fixed system that they can do. I think that has to do with that more than a trunk system.
Essentially what they were doing, what a trunk system will allow you to do is essentially you've got multiple radios that you can access off of one tower. So I can dial, it's like I can make a party line, like a call. I can call multiple agencies and everyone can hear. I can also segregate who I want to talk to. What happened there was that we were still going through the repeaters. She just married the channels on her end.
Yeah, it's something 911 can do. I don't think that wouldn't be a true trunk.
But no, it's not a trunk. It's them it's going through their computers. So they have to use
as close as we can get.
So for now, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
The next few pages are talking about the do's and don'ts of proper radio communications, watching the clarity of speech. Best thing I can tell people is think about what you're going to say before you transmit it, so you know you have a plan in your head what you're going to say. When you're talking and transmitting to somebody, do you identify yourself or who you're calling first? Who do you call first on the radio? Do you say blank, this is, or do you say who you're calling out to? If you ever get walked on, or if you don't hit the button time, you don't let that delay happen, you can actually go, okay, blank, this is so-and-so. Now I can actually go, so-and-so, this is so-and-so, your message is broken, unreadable. I actually know who you are. You may have walked on, or the signal may have been interfered with. Things to think about test-wise that are on here. Watching the speech things are going on page 115, talking about how far away to hold the radio from your mouth. Seems weird, but that's a fun test question they like to throw at you a lot of the time. 1 to 2 inches, 25 millimeters to 50 millimeters from your mouth. And it should not be directly at the microphone. It should be almost on a 45-degree angle. Hits the side of the microphone.
I find it kind of funny that they feel that they need to put this slide in. Do not remove your face piece to talk into the mic. Somebody has done that because they would not talk about it unless somebody has done that.
So is that the one you said that they like to put in, or the distance one?
Distance. They usually throw that distance one in just because it's a fun memorization one. Seems silly, but The next few pages are going to be real quick. On-scene commanders and on-scene communications, you should give an arrival report, progress report, requesting additional resources. That's more of a command thing. But if you are firefighting, you go, hey, I need more tools and equipment, it's all right to ask for it. Emergency radio traffic. Understand the difference between emergency radio traffic and a mayday. Emergency traffic is where you're asking for the channel to be clear. You have something important that has to be said so all agencies can hear or the commander can hear. Mayday, meaning you're actually as a firefighter down, firefighter trapped, something like that. So understand there's a difference. It starts talking about that on page 119. And PAR, the term on page 120, a personal accountability report. This is a report that is given if someone asks for PAR. The incident commander asks for PAR. They're trying to figure out how many people they have on scene, or an agency, or a certain division, or somebody. What is your people you have on scene? If you are an attack team 1 or something, an attack team is going into a fire, and there's 2 of you going in, you guys are a team, and I'm the incident commander outside and I ask for your PAR. What I'm asking for, do you have each other? And you come back, Roger, we have a PAR of 2. When would I ask for it? It's on page 121. Whenever the incident commander declares one, it should be done about every 15 minutes. When a strategy changes from offensive to defensive or defensive to offensive, there's a big event that happens, collapse, backdraft, emergency, someone's reported missing, and a safety officer requests it. Can you guys give a PAR for this group when we're up there? I asked them for PAR. They're not on the radio. You think you have them? Can you give them the PAR for them? The one thing I want to dance around here is don't assume PAR should actually be done, radio communication and the PAR should be done for whatever groups are being asked. If you speak with somebody in their hat, the commander on the other end of the radio only hears that PAR. Meanwhile, you thought they were a team of 3, but they're really a team of 4. We might have a person missing. Don't speak for other people's personal accountability report. Don't give a PAR for them. Let that agency that's doing it be involved.
I just addressed that last night as well when we were doing some radio scenarios. We had asked that somebody, alert using emergency traffic or mayday as to whether or not, just to distinguish between the two. And somebody, before knowledge, stated that we have an attack team of 2 inside. Well, you're standing in the scenario, that person is standing outside. So how would they know that? So when's another time that PAR can change? Say that Matt and I are an attack team of 2 people. When can our PAR change?
If you've been assigned to another duty.
Potentially. But when would Matt and I are an attack team, when do we have the ability on our own to be able to change PAR?
One, if you get separated.
One of us becomes separated, or?
One goes down, one crosses it.
We found somebody. That's right. Now if we found one victim, now we're PAR 3.
See, there's mixed thoughts on that too, because there was a time when people said, well, if you find a victim, they're PAR. Then you start talking about, we're at a bus accident. We're at a car accident there, and there's 36 kids involved. And on the 2 people going and doing the rescue, there's only truck 4. What's your PAR? Because that's where people are going, I have to add the victims. Or do you not? How many do you know you have? That's where I always caution people. Like, I understand where that thought has come from. And there has been a time when that training was always there. You always, okay, you find a victim, you're a PAR 3. Makes sense. Now you know there's 3 people working their way out. Good from a commander perspective. There's also another way of thinking that you don't give the victim. You are only you. That's the commander is only responsible for you. Because the victim was already there. That's their emergency. So, I agree with you, John, the same way. There is mixed thoughts on it. So follow the authority having jurisdiction when it comes to PAR. Do you add your victim or do you not? So, masonry. We're getting into building materials, building construction. This chapter here, there's a lot of information in here. This is what I really wanted to get out of tonight was hopefully you guys have already done the chapters. You've already read a bit about it. You already are familiar with construction, different types of materials, so that this isn't going to be where I have to explain OSB to you like every step of the way. We're going to touch on terms in here, touch on the highlights, and understand big things about why we're doing this is we're trying to train you guys that the buildings out there are trying to kill you in some way, shape, or form. So we are trying to help you look out for that. Be safe. Building materials can be anything from wood to
1 second.
material.
Sorry for all the online learners. I apologize. The slideshow for this one is too large for me to load into the online classroom. However, if you do go into Resource 1, later on when you're playing this back, the slideshow is in there, so you can view it there. But you won't be able to see it. You'll just be able to see what's on Matt's screen.
I do have a quick question about chapter 4.
Yes.
I found it that for someone who doesn't come from any type of construction knowledge, background, anything like that, did I find it interesting? Absolutely. I learned a lot. But I find that
It's a lot of information.
what concerns me is that when it comes to actual written tests, obviously when we're doing the online written test, I have access to my book, which is extremely helpful and probably answers a lot of stuff that I was catching when I was actually reading. You know, you're reading, but you're not necessarily grasping everything because there's so much. And when you're going through the questions, that helps you dig deeper. And so I really like that. But one thing I was thinking is when you're actually going to be doing the 1001 written test, how much am I going to have to remember things like that? Because
I'd love to ask.
yeah, I know, and that's what I want too, right? But at the same time, I'm like, what is enough? Because I don't come from a construction background.
That's a really good question, and that's why I wanted to help paint the picture for you. In my experience, you'll have like a 100-question level 1 test. I usually see, almost guarantee, a question on types of constructions, the one through 5. You may see a type of roof construction, like a mansard roof is one of the following diagrams. So that makes you go, crap, I gotta look at that. You'll get a door or a window type question for building construction. A Louise window is what type of window, and it'll actually show you like diagrams, or it'll explain it. So it is silly in a way. I'm a firefighter. I know there's a window, and the landscape manager said to break it. I don't even know what type of window it is, but there is relevance to it in regards to, okay, if I had to break a window and there's 5 options of a different type of window, and I only have to break one, which one's the easiest one to do? Looking at the amount of glass, the moving parts, those type of things. There is a relevance to it. So that's my experience with this. You'll see questions on types of constructions, 1 through 5. You may see something on a term of construction. You'll see something on a roof construction. You'll see something on windows, and maybe something on doors. What's a hollow core door? What's a solid door? Those type of things. Because I said that, you may not get a single one.
Right.
These are all random questions. Just in my experience, they always seem to throw something like that at you. I always remember that too because Jelly Wee's windows always stumped me. And I remember after reading about it, looking at it, I grew up, born in the 80s, early 80s, and I saw those hatchbacks in the late 80s and 90s with all those slats, the rear windows, all those slats. That's what sticks in my head as my memory for it. So I hope that kind of answers your question, but I'm going to try and hit the high points as we go through. Different types of construction materials, anything from wood, masonry. If you don't know what we're talking about, wood construction is a paragraph for you to read. Masonry, we're talking about brick. Terms that you'll need to know is the veneer walls, spalling. Spalling is where you have bricks rarely show any signs of loss integrity. Stones and concrete may lose small portions of their surface when heated, a condition called spalling. I have got to see this happen firsthand. A cement floor is there. There's a really heavy working fire on it, and all of a sudden you hear this loud pop. It almost sounds like a gunshot going off inside a building. And what happened was all the moisture still left in cement superheats to the point where all that gas has to go somewhere, and a big flake of concrete comes shooting up. So that's spalling. It can weaken what you're on, so that's why it's important to understand the warning signs. Veneer wall, like the fake or decorative walls on the side of things, they can be a hazard because you don't know who's anchored to it, what are they anchored to. That building's on fire, maybe it's lost their anchors, now you have a hazard coming down. It's a good thing to identify and to size up. You guys know the wall I'm talking about. You drive by someone's house, like that's a gorgeous brick home. You go around the side and doing your walk around, that's all wood framed. That's just a piece that's on the front, just to look decorative. A veneer wall can be a hazard because people standing around the front can be working. Some things can burn away, the mounts can burn away, thing falls down. So, iron, steel, lightweight truss systems, all used in construction. Important thing just basically to remember is never trust a truss. So you start taking out truss. start calling it sheetrock a lot. It has different terms, but basically its manufacturer, its name is gypsum. It's just drywall. I don't see it as much. It was a big thing that was coming up for a while. There was gypsum that was expensive. It held a better fire rating. It held heat better. They were trying to market it, but the reason it was catching and the fire departments were fighting it everywhere, it was like a firefighter killer gypsum type wall. It was reinforced, break through it very well, those type of things. Lath and plasters type construction, you'll see it in some older farmhouses. I don't know if you guys have. It's just a whole bunch of wood slats going vertically, and then it's just plastered over, painted over. Sometimes it's wallpapered over, whatever you get. It's important to understand what those types of things are, because if you have to breach a wall, it's going to be harder to go through the lath and plaster. What type of insulation can be on the other side of lath and plaster for those of you that have experience to it? Yeah, it can be asbestos. Older stuff did that. Sawdust. I've seen sawdust. I've seen newspaper. Someone built that house in 1935, 1940s. They packed it with straw, newspaper. That was the insulation. Nope. Anything that starts with ridiculous, I kind of think it's already got that disadvantage. So in the next page, it talks about the different types of insulation. Are they going to ask you types of insulation? Possibly. It's obviously, because it's in the book. What is important to know for a firefighter? Insulation can help keep heat in. If I have to go through a wall, what am I going to have to go through? What type of insulation is there? Things to think about for protecting yourself. It's an older home. Chance of asbestos being in there. Be wearing your pack.
I can't remember if they talked about it in here a bit on that, but when you're talking about lath and plaster, what I have worked on a couple of old farmhouses, and what they tend to do is not take that out and add to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to be aware that it could be lath and plaster with sheetrock, or they could have pine board or sheetrock, or not sheetrock, plywood or what's
paneling even.
It can get kind of nightmarish.
If you get in this profession long enough, or even you'll see all types of constructions. We've got to see multiple wall surfaces covering, just like you described, lath and plaster. There's paneling over it that somebody's just drywalled because it was too much work to take it down. You can see that with roof material. I believe it's code. You can have 3 sets of different shingles on a roof before you have to start removing them. So you can have 3 layers of shingles there. That doesn't even include the guy in the 50s there that re-plywooded it and left that old roof underneath it. We've seen those even in town here. We've got to see layers of people where actually the outside of the house had a stucco wall, stucco finish. Then they put that R90, that P90, whatever that stuff is on the side in the 70s. Then they actually put vinyl siding up over that. They're going through layer and layer of building material.
And metal roof can go over all of that stuff.
Yeah, it could still be an existing underneath there. So understanding those terms like insulation, what we're dealing with, types of materials, plastics, composite. One thing I did want to draw your attention to is page 141, talking about plastic material used in homes. That picture that's on here, it really shows you where we've come. Years ago, they would have a chase like this going through something in a wood frame home, and they would just leave it. That's good enough. You need to fire seal it, fire separation, so they're actually doing better today in blocking the stuff off. Because smoke, heat, flames can travel through there. And it's not just for like rodent control or pest control. It's to try and control the behavior of fire as much as you can. Because if that wasn't controlled, you can have fire spread from one area to the other. You can have that go exposed to that floor. You can see it's just flammable material. Moving on to the next ones, we're talking about construction classifications. United States construction starts talking about, there were some terms up on page 142. Finger jointed timber, laminated timber, MDF, medium density fiberboard, particle board, synthetic woods, just different types of product that you'll see. Do I see that on tests a whole lot? In my experience, I haven't. MDF is what you can get a lot of your baseboards out of now. It's kind of like that thing between plastic and wood almost. It's just a man-made substance there. It's just all decorative things. You can tell some of the MDF, once it gets wet, it just swells and it just destroys a little bit. So different types of construction. Different types of construction that we're going to talk about that I need you guys to be aware of. Types 1 through 5. In here it talks about the classifications of the US more than Canada. You guys will need to know this for the test. If you don't get a test question, I'm not surprised. Type 1 construction. Immediately my head goes, the most fire safe. Not true. Type 1 is fire resistant. So I'm just going to abbreviate this just to save time. Fire resistant. This can still be what would look like a type 2 building, which is non-combustible construction. This non-combustible construction here, what's the difference between fire resistant and non-combustible is components that do not meet the non-combustible rating. An example would be a cinder block building, a school, for example. You guys know what I'm talking about? You have the cinder block wall schools. You got trusses going all the way across, and then you have a wood roof over part of that building. That doesn't make the whole building class 2 or type 2. That would make it type 1 because the wood frame is a potential thing that makes it fire resistant, but not type 2. So type 2 is the non-combustible. Type 3 is ordinary. This is where I love teaching this in Western Canada because ordinary for us, I would always call type 5. Type 5 is wood frame. You guys see it all the time out here. Who builds a shop out here and it's got a wood frame? They tin it. That's actually type 5 construction. That's not the other ones. We're just talking about wood frame construction. Type 3 is more your brick, more your masonry, those type of things that are there. This doesn't include veneer walls. So don't think that just because there's a veneer wall, that means it's a type 3 ordinary construction. If it's still a wood frame house, it's still a wood frame house. Type 4, heavy timber. That's your large wood, your logs, that type of construction. And type 5 is your ordinary, wood frame. Wood frame construction. Know those 5. Now understand the relevance. Let's connect it. Why do you need to know this? I'm your incident commander. I'm giving you a size up. I say over the radio, we have a working structure fire and a type 5 construction home. Did I paint a picture for you what house we're dealing with? So what tactics, like it just changes your tactics and perspective already. I tell you already that you're going to a type 1 construction building. So you should be thinking to yourself already, like it's a non-combustible walls and maybe an element of it that's going to be fire resistant. It's going to be a harder building to burn down the ground. Type 1, type 2. Heavy timber, there's some out there. There's some log cabins in the area, or indeed. There's some log homes. There's some heavy timber. So it does help in your size up. That's why understanding the relevance of it does make sense. Those are those things. Terms that you guys should have an understanding of a little bit of is protected steel, fire resistant rating, fire stops. Fire stops can be as easy as like that height chase I showed you. A fire stop in new construction homes is just a block of wood that's sealed off the wall so flames and smoke can't spread off the wall like what a balloon frame used to do. Moving along a little bit faster here, type 4, I'm going on to 148, 149, manufactured structures, prefab homes, factory-built homes. There's manufactured homes, which can be your RTMs, which is a ready-to-move house. It's just a template of design, moved on. It can be built. Modularized homes, panel homes, pre-cut homes, hybrid homes. Factory-built homes was also an example, but in common terminology, would you say a trailer? Yeah. Do they present their own hazard? Yes, they do. Or horizontal chimney.
Yeah.
Can't really stop fire spread. I've lived in
When
that for
I
a
was
while.
reading that, I was like, oh my god, my house is going to burn down in
So fast.
Yeah, so fast.
So fast.
Before the 1403 was really started to be observed, there's a few times where the guy had, now what I didn't know then, the privilege of being able to go inside a trailer fire when it was asked to burn. We would put a can of garbage right beside a drape, and within 2 minutes, we were achieving rollover within 2 minutes. So these things go fast.
Chimney and then after the fire.
Yeah.
Sounds like where my bunch.
My very first fire was a in a trailer fire, and the very first home I ever bought was a trailer. So 10 years apart, but well, whatever.
And they can trap. My first fire was a trailer as well, and we went in, and there was smoke and flame coming from outside the trusses on the outside. And we went in, and it was perfectly fine. And I was just a brand new guy. Dean Martineau, Chief Martineau, was a lieutenant at the time, and he reached up with a pipe pole, pulled the entire roof down, and it was fire. So these things suck.
I think everybody's first fire.
Almost seems that way.
Seems to be that way.
Okay, we're going to go through this chapter, and that's where we're going to call it. We're going to have to catch chapter 5 up, just because it's running a little long. It's good, though. Good discussions, good things. I think we're hitting the points we want to hit, and hopefully it's helping. Is it helping so? Back to good homes. This is something that's new to me. Type 1 through 5 was all I've been exposed to my entire firefighting career so far. Type 1 through 5, that was in every firefighter handbook. This is the first handbook that talked about that with the U.S. classification. Then they go into Canadian construction, talking about the National Building Code of Canada. It has only 3 types: combustible construction, non-combustible, and heavy timber. This is new to me. How, I don't know how this is going to come out for testing for you guys. It is beyond me. I don't know. I'm used to just the 5 types. I've never had to ask what's the Canadian, what's the U.S., because they've been the same. Canadian, U.S. was type 1 through 5. There may be a difference, is all I'm stressing to you guys. So, occupancy classifications. You can have single-use homes, mercantile homes, business. You can actually go through codes and go through what an occupancy is. The charts on 153 over through to 156 talks about different occupancies. Their ICC category class, yeah, something like that. And NFPA Group A divisions and B. This is where it gets down your inspector route. Did you guys see on the practice test something that referenced these charts? I really didn't. So when I was going through this chapter, this is a lot of information that is beyond the 1001 level. This is exposure into where your occupancy classifications can go. Don't mark my words and say they'll never come up, but those charts are next level. They are far enough beyond. It's just exposure to what's out there. Understanding how the building is trying to kill you is where I'm trying to get into next, going to building components: foundations, floors, ceiling, walls, roof, stairs, doors, windows. Looking at how there can be hazards. The foundations, understanding what pilings are in building construction. Some areas where you're going to build a home, you can really build it right there. You're in Yellowknife, you're putting it right on rock. As long as it's stable and doesn't shift, you're fine. Some areas another home can sink. You have to develop pilings. You have to have an engineer. This is all engineer level stuff. What determines if there's pilings or not has to do with the foundation of your home. Some areas can have bad foundation. Buildings can be sinking. Different types of construction from floor to ceiling. Your floor could be a concrete slab, but yet the roof above you can be a floor truss, maybe even a silent floor construction, depending on the type of home. So not every floor construction will necessarily be the full on the same. Walls, different terminology with walls. Non-load bearing, just it's a wall that you're using to separate a room. Maybe it's a decorative wall. Partition wall, firewalls, and party walls. A firewall has something as a fire rating. A common firewall rating is actually something that's rated for 2 hours in a mercantile construction. What I mean like that is you come to a strip mall facility, like you paint a picture of a strip mall, a bunch of row of different businesses. You actually have to have a firewall between each business, because what if one is different from the other? You don't want fire spreading from one to all of them. You have to have a firewall. So that firewall will actually make sure the contents will stay in there for a certain amount of time. They usually require those businesses to have a 2-hour fire rating. So that 2-hour fire rating can be accomplished by double 5/8 drywall. So they'll actually put a sheet of drywall up and they'll double it up. That gets your fire rating. So firewalls that way. A party wall is a load-bearing wall that's shared by 2 adjacent structures. They're sharing a wall essentially, and those type of walls can actually have a parapet. You can have something that goes up above on the roof. A parapet can be significant for you during your size up, because if there's a parapet sticking up, there's a good chance that party wall goes beyond the roof line all the way down. Not too often people put a veneer parapet up to separate something visually. That wall has to exist already. So good indicator to you that there's a great chance that the fire is not going to spread through the attic space into the adjacent structure because of that parapet. Ridge, eaves, those terms that feel pretty good. I'm on page 162, figure 434, these type of roof systems. Common things we're talking about, you'll see a pitched roof, arched roof, flat roof. All of these can still have a truss system, a roof truss system. So that roof truss system can actually move into the next slide too that talks about the common roof styles. This is where I told you guys at the beginning of this, like there's so much information here, what do I have to know? I have been asked my test questions in the past. What is it? Sawtooth roof system, a butterfly roof system. That butterfly style roof system used to also be called an Arizona roof. They kind of dropped that from it. The mansard, the gambrel, the hip, lantern, you know, of course, you guys do what you can to memorize these things, to look at them. I don't think they're so vital of information for us. In tactical and fire service, you have to deal with what the roof gives you. What you can look at is what you may be seeing on the other side of it. Will there be a roof truss system? You know, texture designs will lead you that way pretty quickly. You know, you can see these more in elevator styles, different types of homes. These are more your bungalow styles. This can be your pitched roof systems. These here, you can see terracotta tile systems on these types of roofs sometimes. So that just talks about different shingles and roof construction means. You can have arched roofs with a rain roof over top. You can have barrel type roof, bowstring trusses, roof trusses. If I said to you gusset plate or gang nail, do you know what I'm talking about? Some people have come from a construction background, so to save time and money, they'll actually use a gusset plate. It's a steel plate. You can actually have that pressed into the board when they're putting the roof truss together. Otherwise, it would take, I can't remember, I used to have that stat. It was like 18 screws or nails it was supposed to be in. Yeah, it's on there. It used to take so many to actually hold it together to meet code of your truss, but one gang nail does it. And the reason this is a hazard to us is because it only bites in, I can't remember what it is, 1/4 of an inch, each little tab that's on your gusset plate. When it's exposed, if 1/8 of an inch, when it's exposed to fire conditions, the metal can elongate, can pop out, your truss can fail. And when one truss fails, it's holding up a portion of the system. That means the rest of the system has to hold more of it, and that can lead to collapse. Don't be cutting things of any truss system. Don't cut a board out of it. Don't sever it, because again, you can weaken that truss system, causing collapse. So that's why there's been for years that never trust a truss thing has been coming up. Watching your roof styles and your tactics for fighting. Next, we got on here different types of roof construction. You can have roof decking. This has happened in areas not too far from here. It probably has happened in town too. Actually, I think it even did happen in the old vet clinic, if I'm right. They had a roof deck on there, tar and gravel type construction. It's leaking. They need to fix it, need to repair it. The cost is actually cheaper to build a whole new roof system over top of it and leave it. Just put a new wood frame up, tin it, problem solved. Hazard for firefighters because they think they're going to go up and vent it, get the hot gases out, and there's this type of system in the area. It's difficult to access the venting for these type of roof systems because you have to scrape the gravel away. You have to go through the tar. Good tool to use is a K12 saw, reciprocating saw, cutting through, again, 4x4, but watch your cutting. You're probably going into metal roof rafters, steel girders, steel frames. So understanding that construction is a great idea, just knowing how to attack it. The next few diagrams, terracotta tiles, very decorative. They look good. They can fall, they can break. They're very fragile when you're up there working on it. Wood shingles, like I said, caution on shingles. You can actually have your asphalt shingles can be up to 3 layers thick. Wood shingles, any wildland type construction, if you have a wood shingle, they quite often, in a triage situation, will write you off. You have a cedar-shaped roof, gorgeous looking roof, but the house is almost written off because any little ember can land in there, fester, and just burn and become a real problem. So wood shingles, again, can be difficult to get on there. Tar and gravel, metal roof. Each roof presents its own challenges from working on it. Metal roof, winter conditions, adverse conditions, a little bit of ice, a little bit of water, you can slide right off that thing. Next thing you know, you got massive injuries or you're killed from falling off the roof. Working on a ladder, important, having that safety aspect. Anything else on roof? Really?
It's starting to become more and more prevalent in the fire service as well in response to following the NFPA 1500. More weight distribution becomes very, very important. So when Mr. Sliman was talking about working from ladders, we're not just talking about working from a ladder that's on the side of the roof. What's the other type of ladder we might be talking about? A roof ladder. For those that may not know what a roof ladder is, it's a smaller ladder. We have them on the sides of the trucks here. So the ladder has hooking that goes over what will go over the pitch of the roof right here. And the intention of that is it's the bed of nails theory. You step on a nail, it's going to go through your foot. You lay down on a bed of nails, your weight is distributed in a longer amount of space. And so what can happen is that if the truss is failing somewhere, your weight is distributed over a longer amount of space, right? So it spreads that out. We really want to get into the habit, actually, more times than not, do not operate not being on a ladder. So when I say operating from a ladder, yes, we're standing on the roof, but we're standing with our legs at least within the rungs. Or if the roof were to fail, we're going to become trapped in the ladder. Just to get into that kind of habit. More and more, what's becoming a lot more common in the fire services as well is that we're actually lanyarding ourselves off to the ladder, which gives us a little bit more play. It's not completely 100%. Nothing is safe. Nothing is 100% safe. But it does allow us to give a little bit more reach when we're operating on a roof from a ladder.
A couple terms, thanks, Jim. A couple terms to talk about. To conceal space between the top floor and the roof construction.
Building 27?
Yeah, building 27. We have some buildings that were famous for having them. Understanding a dead load versus a live load. Dead load is the weight of the structure, members, and building components and other features permanently attached to the building. Questions that have been thrown at you: is an HVAC system mounted on a roof an example of a dead load for your roof construction? Yeah, an HVAC system on your roof that is attached and mounted is the part of the dead load. And if you look at the definition that's on here, it is permanently attached to the building that are constant and immobile. An HVAC system is a good example of that. Is snow a dead load or a live load? Live load. A modern roof that's out there today is a lot more solar energy and solar powers that's going on there. So being aware of the hazards that are there, you can have it as a storage system. They're like batteries. You can get power going to the home. You can even have, in some cases, power going back to the grid.
Here's an example right here.
Yeah.
Volcanic.
So this is more common even in southern Alberta. There's a lot of communities out there that are doing that. That's the future, right? That's why we keep training. We're going to learn more about it. Rain roof construction, bowstring construction with another rain roof attached. We talked a little bit about that. 173 going to 174. Live load, it's talking about furnishing, occupancy. They all collapse out. That's the way they're built and designed. So They don't collapse in. There won't be a mass rush of people trying to get in. It won't work. It'll actually go against it. So you have to have the people going out. The way a door swings is important information for a firefighter. If you see hinges, it means it's swinging which way, typically. Gotcha? Yeah, a lot of the time. This door there, you can see there's a hinge up top, a hinge down the bottom. You look at the door leaving, the hinges, you can't see them. If you know the swinging door. It can change your tactics and how you're going to break in or break through the door. Folding doors, sliding doors, different types of windows, vertical, different types of doors to see. You can see panel, solid core, hollow core. They serve purpose. The more solid the door, do you think the more fire rating it has or less fire rating it has to be protecting the other side against fire? The heavier the door, the higher the fire rating, or lower?
What burns faster?
Will be higher.
It'd be higher, yeah.
It's
Absolutely. So that's what we're dealing with here is that the door construction. You can have a heavier door system. I mean, just weight. I mean, like the actual construction, like you knock on the door, and it can be a little easier to protect this side from heat flames. Hollow core doors, you can see interior of a house. Sometimes it's like a closet door. Knock on it. You ever get mad and kind of punched it a little bit and it went right through the whole thing? Then you start doing that with your exterior door, you punch it and you just break your hand. Like,
punch that many doors in your house?
I maybe had anger issues when I was a younger guy. It's probably
fire rating on this door is fantastic.
Yeah. Things to bring to your attention. Which way doors are facing, panic hardware. If it is an exit door out of the main structure, tall enough to close that door, melts the string, the weight lets go, the door shuts. All types of construction. So, going on to page 186, it shows the breakdown of a window. This is good information just for you for terminology. We said the header plate of the window, we actually have pressurized smoke coming through it. It means we have diagram information of the window. Do I think that this is all test stuff? I have my doubts, but fixed systems, movable windows, you'll see double hung, single hung, casement windows, and there are pictures on page 188 that help back those up. Horizontal sliding, awning, jellywees, projecting, and pivoting. I have on 1001 exams, both level 1, level 2, got to see exam questions that had to do with windows. On my level 1 inspector, I had questions on it. On my 1081 industrial firefighters, I saw building construction questions on windows. So when it comes up on 3 different technical areas of firefighting, something is you tell people to have an understanding of and look at. Find your own way to figure out how to memorize that. Hazards related to building construction, looking at how old the building is, what type of material it is, roof type, ventilation, dead loads, number of stories, windows. When you are doing this, when the building is finally on fire, is sometimes what we refer to as being too late. You're going to still get good information to size up. We live in the communities that we have here. We respond to the communities, take a look at our hazards, go around, understand what we have in our community, what type of hazards we have in the buildings, what type of constructions, what are we looking at. Which ones could be maybe potential to go up more often. Dangerous building conditions, you're looking at the fuel loading. Go to Walmart at Christmas and look at the fuel load potential they have there. It is incredible. You can't even walk down some of those aisles. Like,
Go to a Home Hardware anytime.
Yeah, to go to Home Hardware. That loves it when we bring up Home Hardware.
She does.
Dangerous fire loading conditions. What are they doing? Fire loads can be target hazard buildings, such as a wood, distribution place, somewhere where you can buy all your wood construction material. They have a lot of fire load. Don't overlook furnishings. Furnishings in an office building. Lots of fire load potential in there. You got your wood desks, all your chairs. You have there your electronics, tons of paper. The fire loading that can go on there. Large open space become a hazard. Engineered truss constructions and hazards. Bowstring trusses, open frame, churches. They all present their own hazards. Construction, renovation, and demolition hazards. This is a little bit self-explanatory for a few people because, we know that when someone's renovating, they don't take the proper permits. They just do it quick themselves. It's a hazard. But it's so much of a hazard they put in the material here. Basically, people that have done work to their home, they're not carpenters, they're not tradespeople, they didn't take out the permits, they didn't get engineers to look at things. Does that present a hazard to us ever? But that never happens, though. Ever at all. That stuff is real. It's relevant, understanding that you may be facing it. That's why understanding construction, and that even when you understand as much as you do about it, you can still have people that have done things and altered things on their own. Structural collapse factors. This is something you'll see on a test question. What are warning signs of a structural collapse? How long the fire has been burning, the construction type, the stage of the fire, contents can all be warning signs or things that lead up to a collapse. Different types of buildings that are out there, the truss systems that are in it. Length of time burning is more relevant today than it ever has been. You used to have the golden 20, golden 10, all these times that we used to talk and teach about that you wouldn't be going interior, yada, 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 because of these things. They're dropping that down to as much as 8 minutes now. So if a building's been exposed to heat and flame, you have an actual open flame that is in a room that has contents, average room. They are saying now, if you cannot get entry into the building in under 8 minutes from time of notification of that fire, that it's probably not safe to go in. So that's how much the contents have changed. That used to be 20 minutes.
Why would that be?
Well, so isn't that like any fire that's going to be occurring in our area, because we have a 7-minute response time to the fire call itself?
That's where incident commanders in a situation like this, almost actually a lot of departments out there now are actually stating publicly they are defensive before they go offensive. And a lot of areas in the States, they will claim that they go offensive before they'll ever go defense.
We also operate in the theory of worst case scenario all the time. So when we say 8 minutes, worst case scenario all the time. We can what if it to death to how much the fire breakage is in the building, what the fire load is, how much time we actually have, right? There's so many different variables which affect this as well, the time of day, the time of year. Why would fires today, though, be far more prone to be burning hotter faster than they would have maybe 50, 60 years ago?
Because the type of materials we have in our...
Exactly. There's plastic in everything. It's solid petroleum, essentially, is what it is. Everything. So
even the solar systems and stuff. Manufactured wood.
The solid floor construction, exposed to like 500 degrees. When you think about what 500 degrees is, your oven can do 500 degrees. It will fail. What was the time frame they told us? 17 minutes. It'll fail at like 500 degrees. So what your oven can do, your floor would fail. So interesting stats that are out there, and lots of reading. If you want to look into the NIOSH stuff of all those things, it is incredible, but you will go down a rabbit hole of boring fire department science, but interesting stuff. Length of fire burning, the stage of the fire when you get there. Yeah, maybe the fire has been burning for 15 minutes, but it's still in an incipient stage. Maybe it just didn't get enough fuel. So that will determine whether there's a collapse.
One thing that does help us out with new building types is how efficient our buildings are. They're airtight. So this actually, virtually where the fuel load is decreasing the amount of response time we might have, how efficient the buildings are and how much air is actually being allowed into the building might also be buying us time. But once we get into more fire behavior and we start talking about backdraft or flashover, this is where that efficiency becomes kind of a blessing and a curse as well. So we'll get into that.
I think they actually mentioned that with respect to expert. There's even
Well, you have to have a rating too. Like there's tests that they can do now for how airtight your home is. They'll ionize it. They'll put a matter in there. They'll just have particles. They can measure on all your exits if you're getting proper.
Well, it has to be airtight in both official languages.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm winking at Sarah because she's French.
Structural collapse can occur with little warning. Indicators start to appear. Collapse is imminent, and personnel must withdraw from the structure collapse zone. Warning signs can be cracking, popping, and maybe material falling away from the building. You can see elongation of steel maybe coming out of a building, pushing out of the wall. Those type of things can be factors. Understanding how long the fire has been burning can be a factor. Just taking the safety side of it, that's going to be the commander and the firefighter decision too. Determining collapse zone, rule of thumb is 1.5 times the building. In here on page 199, it actually goes into collapse zones by feet, but the big thing is 1.5 times. It's on there in your page, so make sure you mark that down. Looking at the different types of collapse zones, where you should park apparatus. 45 of the building, at the corner of a building. So in case you have an outward collapse, you're 1.5 times away, but you're not in the area that's going to be there. Balloon frame construction versus platform construction. Balloon frame was so common for so long that even when I first started the fire service, every time we had a fire, no matter what, in a residential home, you checked the attic. The reason you checked the attic was because any smoke or flame penetrated the wall, everything was going up. Because it actually breached the walls, went all the way up to the roof, and just sat there building in the roof. So your attic space. That's what a balloon frame is. It's a quick fab home that was put up. There's no fire stops on any of the walls. So imagine downstairs, the fire burns in the kitchen, and now exposed to this wall, it goes up here and it fill all this area with smoke because it just travels through the walls. Platform construction is a construction method where a floor assembly creates an individual platform, rests the foundation, wall assembly is the height of one story placed in this platform, and a second platform rests on the wall unit. So you basically just keep building platforms on top of each other. What dictates how high you can go is how they're engineered and what the building is made out of. Balloon frame versus platform frame, there's a breakdown of that on page 202, and that kind of gets us through chapter 4. With this, what I want to do at the end was go back and hit key terms. If there's something that didn't make sense, like for example on 205, we did not talk about ceiling jets, but it's talked about 242. If you want to just look up any of those things, that's for chapter 5. If you're looking at any of those key terms as you go through in the past, the review questions are great. The online material is great. Go through that. When you're studying this as you go, write stuff down that's not making sense, and during these classroom sessions, we'll bring it up. We'll talk about it.
Or you can also put it into the forums on Resource One. Because a lot of times what's happening, I'm getting texts and phone calls from students asking me questions, and it's the same question 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, what's with this balloon frame?
Yeah, like put it in there. That's fine. Like we will never chastise somebody. Okay, we would love to be able to clarify that for everyone, because if you have a question, that's what it's there for. So, and you guys can discuss amongst yourselves by all means. Please do. Yes, Phil.
I don't know if you were dying to also ask this question after. But because you're talking about giving questions to the discussion board, I was wondering too, what is the minimum requirement, and not the minimum requirement is all I'm trying to aim at, but how much do we have to answer every question?
No, because a lot of times what's going to happen as well is that, we have almost 20 students. We do have 20 students in this class, and if I ask for 5 examples, I'm going to get it 4 times. The online forums are there for your benefit. The more you employ them, and the more you interact with myself and Matt on these forums, the better off you're going to be in the end. It's a tool to help you prepare. So this is just a way that I'm utilizing to kind of pick your guys' brains, and I've been very impressed. Been talking a lot with me with the online forums, answering the questions, going really answering the questions in some cases, and it's fantastic to see. But what it does as well is it's engaging the rest of the students, and you're inadvertently answering a lot of questions that they may have as well. So does that answer your?
There's going to be a letter coming out soon,
yes.
Talking about what is the minimum to maintain this course. because we had to basically describe and sit down who is doing what and what are we doing. We've gone as far as going, can we make this mandatory? What can be mandatory? What won't be mandatory? John and I have done lots of discussions on it, and I will leave it right now until the letter comes out, painting it out for everybody. I will leave it that all the assignments, all the online stuff, they're there to help you. And if you are not wanting to help yourself too, like, life gets in the way. We are not ogres. We understand this is something you're doing to help out, but they're there for you to help out. This teaching aspect that we're trying to do here is getting in the material. We're diving into it. It's here to help you guys. So we encourage as much participation as you can give.
And we also, we're just to augment that, sorry to interrupt you.
No,
we will have to be firm on the quizzes being done, because this is a way that we are able to gauge some areas that not necessarily it's going to make you pass or fail. We have to insist that you do them though, because that allows us. There we go. So there we go. So just to say that, like, the quizzes, we need to be able to see how you guys are doing. The assignment, like the online forums, we can't mark that. I mean, how can I mark participation? You get a gold star. This isn't grade 2. So having said that, utilize them, because you're only going to do as good as much effort as you put in there. We've given you every tool to succeed. It's just up to you in your education to do that. So.
The one thing that I will add with that too is, for us to continue going forward, we are looking at, the letter will say it, but like, you have holidays, you're sick, whatever happens, you fall behind. We'll try and lay out as best we can something that helps you guys out, that understands, okay, like, yeah, I didn't read chapters 7, 8, 9, and they're due the end of next month. Like, and I'm going on holidays, I'm on the beach. Do I expect you to take the textbook with you? Well, my instructor voice to me is like, well, yeah, it'd be great to go read on the beach, go read. But I understand.
I was talking to you guys in Mexico.
Yeah.
Then you can do your bathing suit and suitcase.
Yeah.
You already have them.
I'm overweight.
Yeah, overweight.
That's my carry-on magazine. But we do have flexibility here. That's why we have the length of the program that we have. We may even extend it depending on where our practical has to lie. So we need to figure out that very soon. But we need to make sure you're doing the quizzes for the chapters. So that is the checks and the balances for us going, yes, they have read chapters 1 through 5. Yes, they passed the quiz. I know they've been in the book.
And please be honest with yourselves. I mean, we can't mandate that, you close your book and we're on the honor system. That being, like, do the quiz, like, please do the material. Try the quiz without the book. Just try it. Because we don't care if you do well or you don't. Like, we don't care. But we want to see, we want to acknowledge, we want to be able to, as instructors, our goal is to make you guys a high percentage makes us look good and it makes us feel good. That's our goal. Right? This isn't like we're trying to fool you or trick you or trying to weed out the bad. We're trying to make everyone better here. Okay.
Okay, so that was